The safety position on the Titans roster. When will rookie Kevin Winston Jr. crack the lineup? That might be the biggest question of this group. We are going to dive into our positional breakdown starting today with the safety group. We're going to run through every player in the room, talk about their chances of making the roster and how we see this lineup unfolding. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville. In partnership with 440 Sports, I'm Justin Graver. Joining me as always, Justin Melo and Justin. Today, we are beginning our 10-episode series going through every position group on this Titans roster ahead of training camp. Training camp from today is 2 weeks and 1 day until the Titans report on July 22nd. So we're going to get us, you and me and our audience, to training camp by spending the next 10 days, weekdays, with 10 different episodes, one on each position group. How's it going, my friend?
Doing well. Yeah, excited for us. You know, we've really ramped up our recording schedule this off season, and you guys seem to be loving it. You tell us you'd love to get daily episodes from us. We've been trying our best. We've had 2, 3 every single week. Well, this week and next week, we're going to have 5 episodes. That's one every single weekday. Excited to deliver these training camp previews to you guys.
Yeah, I am too. And we are starting, of course, as I mentioned already, with the safety group. Now, Justin, for a little context, you and I just did a power ranking the Titans position groups 1 through 10, and we had the safeties as the third best position group on the Titans roster. So one of the better units on this team, and there are 7 players that we know of right now in this room as training camp begins. Now, remember, the Titans can always be churning the back end of the roster, and a couple of these players might qualify as potential cuts to be replaced by who the hell knows which players out there on the market. But the 7 names that we will be discussing today: Amani Hooker, Xavier Woods, Mike Brown, Kevin Winston Jr., Mark Perry, Julius Wood, and Kendall Brooks. Now, if you are a diehard Titans fan and you recognized all 7 of those names, let us know in the comments below. We want to acknowledge your knowledge of this Titans roster, because to be completely honest, Justin, Kendall Brooks, that doesn't really ring a bell for me. Julius Wood, I knew about. Mark Perry, I'd heard the name before. Kendall Brooks played in 5 games for the Titans last season. Now, I think all of those snaps may have been on special teams, but did you know that, listener or audience member, viewer watching this right now? Did you know Kendall Brooks was such a big part of this Titans 2024 season?
Well,
we're going to talk about...
Chill, let's not stretch a big part of the 2024. I don't know that I would go that far, but I'll put my hand up and say I only knew 5 of the 7. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Brooks is, it rings a bell. Now, Mark Perry, I didn't know he was on the roster. I'm calling bullshit on you here. If you did hear about Mark Perry, I'm pointing at you, Graver. It's because I interviewed him during his draft year. So you might have seen that come out at the time. But I forgot that he did not get drafted by the Titans, was not signed by the Titans in undrafted free agency. I think he's in his sophomore year. I think he's signed as a UDFA with the Dolphins, if I recall correctly. And Titans brought him in. Now it rings a bell. Earlier this offseason, I had a good relationship with Mark Perry throughout his pre-draft process. I'm excited to learn that he's here in Nashville.
Yeah, so we're going to go through this position group. Obviously, we're not going to spend as much time on the Mark Perrys, Julius Woods, and Kendall Brooks. So I've already spent probably more time than we need to on Brooks. But we're going to talk about what we're expecting from this group, from these players, how we see the rotation shaking out, who's going to start. This position group doesn't have a really notable starting position up for grabs like some of the other position groups that we'll get to later this week or next. But we're going to talk about how we see this group unfolding. And Justin, I think this series is really good for me personally, obviously for our audience, because it's going to prepare me for training camp, because I'm going to have as thorough a knowledge of this Titans roster as I've had in any year covering this team, just by simply having to explain what's happening in each group to our audience. So we're going to teach ourselves so we can teach the audience. And we're going to start with the projected starting safeties here, which I believe to be Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods. If anyone else takes the field for the first defensive snap of the 2025 season at the safety spot, I'll be a little surprised.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, although I do think the dynamics within this room is more interesting than the general Titans fan probably gives credit for, because while there may not be a preseason battle or a training camp battle like there is at linebacker or wide receiver, whatever, I think there could be a midseason position battle at safety that could eventually unfold. And by the way, you and I, we're, I think, higher on this group than the general Titans fan is, because when we ranked at number 3 in our position rankings episode just a few episodes ago, if I'm recalling correctly, a lot of the comments, in that section were a little surprised that we had safety ranked number 3. Now that I get to reminisce on that a little, I feel the same. I'm not changing my opinion. And you could probably say this about any position group, but it's especially notable here due to the history or the current situation regarding 2 of the players. But injuries matter in this room. I think they matter a lot. And if this room is fully healthy, then I'm going to stand by it being the 3rd best position on this roster. But there is a little cause for concern based on A, the history of the main player in this room, and B, the current health status of a rookie that's expected to elevate this room.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk. Let's start with the guy that you referred to first there, in Amani Hooker, who has had some injury issues and some trouble staying on the field throughout his entire time in Tennessee. But I'm excited for what Amani Hooker can do this year. Led the team in interceptions last season and now is in a contract year. So if you don't remember, the start of the 2023 season, Amani Hooker signed a 3-year, $30 million contract, and now he will be playing out the final year of that deal. So it's a big year for Amani Hooker to go prove that he could be one of the highest paid safeties in football, or maybe he comes in for under that to stay in Tennessee because he likes the coaching staff and Denard Wilson. And, it's a big TBD here on what
paid.
I would imagine he wants to get paid. So it's going to be a TBD year for, is Amani Hooker the future starting safety for the Titans beyond this season? Or is this sort of like his last year and then he goes and signs a major contract and the Titans try to use that to get a comp pick in the following year's draft? His projected next contract market value, according to SpoTrack, they've got him at a market value of 3-year, $51 million. So that would be a $7 million per year average annual salary increase over what he made on his last contract. For some context, the highest paid safety in the NFL is making $21 million a year. Xavier McKinney last offseason signed a 4-year, $67 million contract, which is average annual value of 16.75, so just under what they're projecting for Amani Hooker. That's a lot of money for this guy. Is there a world you see Amani Hooker continuing his career in Nashville beyond the 2025 season?
That contract projection might be bang on. It does sound a little on the high end to me. I think if I had to guess, I'd probably put him between like 13 and 15 million per year on the next deal, but inflation, the cap going up, if he has another year like he had last year, maybe he does hit that 17 million a year mark. And I do want to talk about Hooker last year because I do think in previous years, he started getting this reputation about being injury prone. And I feel like that's kind of stuck to him regardless of what happened last year. It's somewhat fair, but last year he played a lot more than I think most Titans, or maybe it's just me, but like Amani Hooker played 850 snaps on defense last year. That's a sizable amount. He appeared in 14 games. Yes, he still missed 3, but that was his most snaps played since 2020. So, 2021 to 2023 was fairly injury prone. He was healthy this past year. I thought he played the best football of his entire career. 5 interceptions. That was a career high mark. We talked about Denard Wilson coming in as a DC, being a former defensive backs coach, how he developed DBs in Philadelphia and Baltimore. I think he did the same thing for Amani Hooker this past year. And it's really encouraging to me that Hooker played his best ball and stayed healthy in a non-contract year. I think that does speak volumes of the progress he made. I thought he was outstanding. Like, the Titans were so bad as a team. I don't think he got enough credit for how good he played. Yes, he missed 3 games. They were 3-14. Maybe he could have worked through a couple of those things if they were more competitive. But again, 850 snaps, 3rd most snap Titans defender on the field. If he repeats that this coming year, yes, he's going to be in a position to demand a fairly lucrative contract, a fairly significant raise on the $10 million per year. By the way, it was John Robinson that signed him to that deal. That's how far removed we are from John Robinson, and Amani Hooker is from that deal. Probably one of the last significant business dealings of the John Robinson era. I would call it a success. I think Hooker has lived up to that contract. It's borderline team-friendly, you might even call it. I agree. And I think he's a damn good football player. I've always been a big fan. Really interesting to see what happens this year. To your initial question, I've been ranting. I do think it's within the realm of possibility the Titans don't re-sign him. I don't think I would agree with that decision. Of course, TBD, what matters this year, what happens this year is what matters. But, Mike Borgonzi puts a lot of value on health, availability, Amani Hooker's got somewhat of a spotty track record. I think he probably should be back. Again, we say that without knowing what he's going to do this year. I think he probably should be back, but I think it's fair to say TBD based on how much Mike Borgonzi values health and availability.
Right, which we seem to think he values a lot based on the moves that he made this offseason. You mentioned the career high 5 interceptions last season. He also had a career high 9 passes defensed, a career high 2 forced fumbles, and his second most tackles, individual tackles in a single season. So lots of encouraging numbers there that he did last season, and to miss 3 games and still put up those kind of numbers is very impressive. I think the biggest factor in whether or not he comes back, number one, it's like, what do you end up doing with L'Jarius Sneed? Because bang, there's $12 million in cap savings right there if you cut him that you could put towards an Amani Hooker contract. And number two, Xavier Woods is on a 2-year contract, right? Kevin Winston, drafted in the 3rd round this year as a first-round talent level player who's coming back from a partially torn ACL. If there's a world where you think you can get cheaper and have, close to the same level of play with Kevin Winston Jr. in his 2nd year and let Xavier Woods play out that 2nd year of his contract, which they may or may not do, then you might not feel the need to go spend a bunch of money on Amani Hooker. And again, like I said before, try to get a comp pick out of it, which this team wants to be a draft and develop team. They're going to need more picks to do that. And one way to get more picks is to let high price free agents walk away. The caveat there is you have to replace them with the right players in the draft, or else you end up with what the Titans just went through the last 3 or 4 seasons, where they let their best players go and then couldn't replace them in the draft, and now they end up picking number 1 overall because of it. So I would be pro bringing back Amani Hooker. I like him. I like watching him. I like the way he plays football, and he makes big plays, and he's very skilled with, ball skills are very good. I remember the interception he had against the Bengals where he's like diving and somersaulting and keeping the ball, like everything. It may have,
wasn't it? That was a playoff game.
Yeah, it was. And I think that the ball may have touched the ground, but he had a good enough control on it that they ruled it a catch, and it was an amazing play. And he's got those kinds of skills. He's a versatile player who can man up on tight ends. He can play in the run game in the box, or he can cover deep zones like as a center fielder type safety. So big fan of Amani Hooker. We spent a lot of time talking about him. I think we should talk about some of the other players here, because Xavier Woods is projected to start next to him. And like you said, the big question of the season at this position group, besides Amani Hooker's contract year, is when does Kevin Winston Jr. take over a full-time role? How early does he get on the field in sub-package looks? And are him and Xavier Woods interchangeable as far as play style and like where they're going to play? Is it in the box, like in the run support role? I think Kevin Winston Jr. has a better ability to man up on tight ends. Of course, that's based only on college film, and so we don't know what he's going to be in the NFL. And then Mike Brown is the 4th name in this room who has played, has started games for the Titans when they were going through injury issues, and is another capable player who's not going to be a liability, I think is how we described it when we were going through the position group rankings. So that's 4 guys that I feel like you're happy if any 2 of those guys have to be on the field, you're not super concerned. Obviously, you want your 2 best guys, and especially Amani Hooker being maybe the 2nd or 3rd best player on the defense overall. I guess 3rd best, I'd say, behind L'Jarius Sneed and Jeffrey Simmons, but could be 2nd best if L'Jarius Sneed is a non-factor this season, TBD. So you obviously want them on the field, but it's one of the deepest position groups in terms of starting caliber or replacement level that you feel okay about players out of any position on the roster.
Yeah, and I know you were trying to move us along, but I'm going to go back and make one point because I can't help myself. It's important. When you're projecting a guy leaving like Amani Hooker, I think the most important way to do that when you're looking in-house is, do I have guys on the team capable of replacing him? And I'm moving us along as well, to your point. When I look at Kevin Winston Jr., yes, we're projecting based on college film. We'll see what he's going to be. Yes, I do think he's a bit more athletic than Xavier Woods, to your point, can man up on tight ends a little bit. But I do think he's a bit more similar to an Xavier Woods than he is to an Amani Hooker, where, the last time he played a full season for Penn State, he led the defense in tackles. Mm-hmm. I think this is a guy that's going to be really good near the line of scrimmage and creeping downhill. Whereas Amani Hooker, to me, yes, he can do that, but I love him in that center field role. career highs in picks and pass breakups last year. You don't necessarily do that by playing man coverage on tight ends near the line of scrimmage, in all honesty. You do that by playing those deep ball hawking roles in coverage. So I don't think the Titans have an appropriate in-house replacement for Amani Hooker right now. I think Woods and Winston Jr. are a little too similar to one another to project letting Hooker walk and then moving forward with Woods and Winston. And to your point about money, if they want to re-sign Amani Hooker and they want to promote Kevin Winston Jr. in 2026, I know we're looking a little ahead. Xavier Woods on that 2-year deal, cutting him, I did the math earlier today for a piece that we're writing at Titan Size, saves $4 million. Like, that's a decent amount of savings that you could put towards an Amani Hooker contract or whatever. So that's an alternative possibility. It's not just about letting Hooker walk or cutting Snead. There's some money to be saved by letting Xavier Woods go in the final year of that deal. What's most interesting to me about this position, and we'll eventually close out with the last 3 guys in the room, but not a whole lot to say about them.
I don't know where you're going, but I did want to talk about Xavier Woods a little bit because I think he's kind of an underrated player who played all 17 games last year, had 3 interceptions of his own, had 119 total tackles. Like, this guy was, were you about to say he played the most snaps of any defender in the NFL?
Yes.
I think he did, yeah.
He played every Carolina Panthers defensive snap. He didn't miss a single snap. That's like impossible.
Right. So this is a high-level player. I mean, not a high-level player, but a
high-level availability player.
Right. High-level availability and dependable. A guy who's going to make, he's going to miss a couple tackles. He's going to be out of position a few times because he's not a superstar safety, but he's someone.
Not great in coverage either. Not great in coverage.
But he did have 3 interceptions last season and 6 pass breakups, which is pretty good according to Pro Football Reference. So, those aren't bad numbers. Amani Hooker had 5 and 9, which are great numbers, but 6 pass breakups for a safety is pretty good number. 3 interceptions, you'll take that. So I think that this is a very capable player, I guess is how I'll put it. Not like a great player, but very capable. So if there is a moment where Kevin Winston Jr. supplants him as the starter, it means Kevin Winston is doing really well and going to be an even better player than what they're getting out of Xavier Woods, who is very capable of being a quality, if not high level, but quality NFL starter. So this is a great position group that the Titans have at the back end, and it's a position group that I think they didn't get the best play out of last year, and part of that was injuries knocking out many key players in the room, but having what they have going into this year in a defense that wants to blitz a lot and wants to be physical with their cornerbacks on the outside, you need safeties that can help and recover and make up for times that you get beat or can't get to, or the pass beats the blitz or whatever. You're going to need those safeties to be in the right spot. So I think that they've constructed this roster well with what they have in the safety room for what Denard Wilson wants to do.
The most interesting question in this room, and I don't think I got to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm with you that Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods are your week 1 starters. Knock on wood. There's no doubt about that. Is Xavier Woods still playing ahead of Kevin Winston in week 8, in week 9, in week 10? Because Winston, let's tamper expectations a bit. He's a rookie coming off a partially torn ACL, didn't really do anything physically at OTAs or minicamp. We'll see where he's at once training camp rolls around in a couple of weeks, which is why we're doing these previews. We'll see where he's at physically, but it's going to take a little time. But realistically, you'd like to think week 8, week 9, week 10, he's maybe ready to ramp up a little bit. Where's he at then, and does he replace Xavier Woods in the starting lineup?
All right, Justin, I want to ask you how many of these other 3 safeties, Mark Perry, Julius Wood, and Kendall Brooks, make the team. Now, I will reference a 53-man roster projection you put out a few weeks ago now, where you had 5 safeties making the team, with the 4 that we just talked about in at greater length, and Julius Wood. So you have them cutting Mark Perry and Kendall Brooks. Do you still feel that way, first of all? And second of all, if so, why?
Well, a bit of a dart throw, right? Like they could keep 4 safeties. I think ultimately you keep 5 because one of the other 3 will probably play their way into a special teams role. I went with Julius Wood because he's been here the longest. They claimed him off waivers last year from the Dallas Cowboys. Like, they were intrigued by him. This didn't even strike me. Bones Fossil was there last year in Dallas with Julius Wood for a little bit. He leaves midway through the year, comes to Tennessee. Now Bones reunites with him. Played 115 special team snaps for the Titans last year, a handful on defense. that gives them a bit of a leg up on Kendall Brooks, who came in, I think, even later than Wood did, because even though he played in 5 games, he played about half the amount of special team snaps that Julius Wood did. 115 for Wood, 62 for Kendall Brooks. Mark Perry's got to be sort of, least likely as being the latest addition to this room. Yes, he's a sophomore, so he's got some experience as well. He was, again, a UDFA a couple of years ago. I was high on him coming out of TCU. I thought he could play in the NFL. I believe he signed with the Dolphins, if you can look it up, if memory serves me. These connections just keep coming to me live on the air. So he was with Reggie McKenzie last year, if I'm correct, in Miami. So you keep finding these connections the more you look. I found one with Wood. I find one with Mark Perry. These things aren't coincidences, folks. I promise you. With Bones Fossil it is with Wood, but it's not with Reggie McKenzie and Mark Perry potentially. So I think Julius Wood will have the slight advantage. They don't have a single UDFA safety. That's interesting. They did have one, but they cut him after minicamp. Obviously didn't look like an NFL caliber player. So, I still lean towards 5 safeties. 4 is possible, but it would be a little thin. I think they'll keep a 5th for a special teams guy, and I think Julius Wood probably has the slight leg up.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I would probably guess 5 as well. So, and I think those are the 5. So that's it. Kendall Brooks, Mark Perry, you'll have a chance to supplant Wood as the special teams ace safety during training camp and the preseason. And I think that there is going to be a little bit of a battle for that 5th spot between those 3 guys. I think the other 4 guys above them are roster locks. I think we know who the starters will be. And again, the big question here, when and how much does Kevin Winston crack the lineup? So that's it. That's the safety position group. Justin, tomorrow we're going to talk about tight end. We're going to preview the tight end depth chart here and do the same exercise we just did with that room, where there is another player on an expiring contract this season. So will be very interesting to see how that plays out. Any final thoughts on the safeties or anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I think that does it. Really excited about this room. You and I are very high on it. And we're excited to be delivering these daily previews to you guys, position previews every single weekday leading up to training camp. So appreciate you guys tuning into these.
Yes, and appreciate all of you for subscribing to the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it. Like this video. Drop your thoughts in a comment below. What do you think about the safety group? When does Kevin Winston crack the lineup? Will Amani Hooker be back in 2026? Those are questions we want you to answer in the comments below. And check out sinkersbeverages.com. Head to the Basement East website, where Sinkers Beverages is hosting the ticket sales for their 40th birthday jamboree. You don't want to miss this event. Live music. Tickets are only $10 to get in. That comes with 2 free drinks, which I've said now a few times on this show. 2 free drinks for $10. It's like, can you get 2 drinks for $10 anywhere at any bar in Nashville? I don't know about that. So go have a good time. All proceeds. Not in Toronto, not in Dallas, not in LA, where I used to live. I don't think that really exists. So go check them out. Get your tickets. All proceeds go to benefit the Martha K. O'Brien Center in East Nashville. So everything supports a good cause. Have a good time. Check it out. Sinkersbeverages.com. Justin, titansofthesouth.com. We talked about it on the last episode, so don't need to go too deep there. If you don't know what it is, just go to titansofthesouth.com and check it out. If you do know what it is, if you're a regular listener, you definitely know what it is. All right, that'll do it for this one. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow to talk tight ends. So until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.